What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me, where today we've got this really cool neon game over design. There's links to everything you're going to need in the description down below, such as the palette and the font for today's design. And if you've never installed a font, I've got a video that's less than a minute on how to do that. There's a link in the description again, just beside the font. As always, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below, and if you didn't already know, I post 3 more exclusive tutorials every single month over on my Patreon. And with all of that said, let's get started. So once you've created your canvas, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is change our background color. We're going to go ahead and go to our layers, and we're going to go to the background color and double tap at the bottom of the disk to select black. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our actions. We're going to go to the canvas tab, and we're going to turn on the drawing guide with this little toggle here, and we're going to edit that drawing guide because we're going to use the option of symmetry, the 4th option here. And if you pick a color at the top, you'll be able to see that line on the screen. So I'm going to go for white and hit done. And then we've got a symmetry line. And if we go to our layer now, it says assisted. So any layer that says assisted means that we can draw on one side and it doubles up on the other side. So we need our brush. We need the monoline brush in the calligraphy option. We're going to set the brush size to 12%. And we're going to start off with our color set to white. So we're going to go up to our colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. And then we're going to start creating our little arcade machine. So I'm going to start at the bottom down here, and we're just going to draw in our first line. So you want to kind of draw point to point, pop your finger on the screen when you do. And then once we've drawn in our bottom line here, we can draw in another line that's slightly wider than that and a bit higher, of course. So we're going to come across, we're going to draw point to point, pop your finger on the screen to make sure it's nice and straight. And then we can go corner to corner. Now you may need to go ahead and just make sure that they link up nice and tidy, and let go when you're done. And then in here we're going to introduce 3 lines as well. So I'm going to make one slightly narrower, the bottom one, pop my finger on the screen again. We're then going to go for a slightly wider one, pop your finger on the screen again, and I'm going to the end of the line every time. And then we're going to make this one a little bit narrower and draw that across and pop your finger on the screen. There we go, we've got our 3 little lines at the bottom there. Now what we're going to do is just draw in the line that all the buttons sit on. So we're going to draw this line here, but we're going to leave a gap because neon typically has little gaps in there where the shapes are separated from one another. And then we're going to go ahead and from that point, we're going to go ahead and draw in a line that runs up, but not straight. We want it to sort of lean backwards ever so slightly for a little bit of perspective. So we're just going to point that inwards just a bit more like this and bring it down just a little bit more. And then just like we did at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and draw that little line in here, which is just going to join it to the top of the arcade machine. So a little something like that. And then what we're going to do is just replicate this shape, but up here. And we're going to go ahead and draw in a line all the way across, go in point to point, make sure it's nice and straight. And then at the top here, we're going to go ahead and draw in the top line, again, sort of mirroring the bottom area down there. So a little line into the middle, and then draw in another line that links them up at the top. And then we're going to go ahead and add in the 3-line design. So we're best off starting in the middle because then you can evenly sort of space out your lines and work out how much space you have. And then we can just draw in another line here, a little bit narrower, and another one at the top that's also a little bit narrower again. There we go, we've got our 3 lines at the top of the arcade machine. We can then go ahead and use this line here and these lines on the side to draw in the screen. So the screen comes in from this corner on the side, and we're going to draw in a straight line across. Put your finger on screen, of course. We're then going to go up from this point up towards this area here, and again just mirroring that point there on the left hand side. So we draw that line up like so, and then we're going to zoom in and just draw in the linking line across the top. So popping your finger on the screen to make sure it's nice and straight. And there you go, you've got your screen in the middle. Next, let's move on to the buttons down here. So we're going to go to our layers, and we're going to create a separate layer this time. We're going to go ahead and zoom in and draw in a circle for our little central joystick here. So we're going to draw in a circle, and when you've linked it up, it will turn into an ellipse. But if you pop your finger on the screen, you'll get a nice perfect circle. And we want to make something roughly this sort of size. And grab your cursor. This is important to then go down to this corner here and turn on snapping. This will allow you to put it on the orange line in the middle of the screen there, letting you know you're nice and central. We're then going to go ahead and create another new layer. and we're going to create a little ellipse down here, which is going to be the base of the joystick. And then again, you can hold your pen down to make a perfect ellipse, but if you pop your finger on the screen, it will try and keep it nice and horizontal for you. And we want it to somewhat roughly match up to the joystick head there at the top, size-wise. Then grab your cursor and move that onto that center line again. And we want to position it a little bit closer towards the middle between these two lines here. Tap on your cursor when you're done. And then the only addition there is to draw a line from the middle and link it up to the bottom of our circle. Now, of course, we've got a line running through here, and also we need to go ahead and link these shapes up. So let's go to our layers. We've got the base and the head at the top. We can join them together by pinching them together. And then we're going to go to our outline layer for our arcade machine, and we're going to use the eraser. I'm going to tap on the eraser and make sure under calligraphy we're using the monoline brush, and let's just simply chop away, creating a nice little gap here. And because it's got the symmetry option on, it will nicely keep that nice and symmetrical for you. And then I recommend just rounding off the corners of the sharper edges to follow more in suit with the rest of the design. And there you go, you've got a nice little gap there for your joystick. Let's go ahead now and create another new layer, and we're going to switch back to our brush, and we're going to go ahead now and create 3 ellipses, but we're only going to do it once. So we're going to draw in an ellipse like this, somewhat close to the size of this one here. And once you've drawn one, go to your layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Grab your cursor, move it up to this sort of space here. And if you've got snapping turned on, which you should do, you'll see that blue line there, which lets you know the bottom of this ellipse touches the top of that ellipse, is in line with each other. So that's what we want to hit. And then go back to your layer, swipe that ellipse to the left and duplicate it. Grab your cursor and move that off to the left until we're in line with this one here on the right hand side. And then we'll know that they're nicely sort of spaced out from one another. And you can even hit that vertical line to let you know you're touching and in line with the ellipse above. And we'll move this one just to make sure. So we'll go back to our layers and we'll go back to the original ellipse. Grab your cursor and move that across, hitting the 3 lines to let you know you're in line with this one, and that blue line to let you know you're on the side of the one above. Tap on your cursor when you're done. And then we're going to go ahead and go to our layers and pinch all 3 of them together. So grab the top one and the bottom one and pinch them together. Swipe the layer to the left and duplicate it. Grab your cursor and slide that across to the right, moving across, making sure you hit all 3 of the horizontal lines there until you roughly know where it is. Then go to your layers and pinch the 2 layers of the buttons together. Then grab your cursor and move it onto the orange line in the middle to let you know you're nice and central, keeping everything super symmetrical. Then what we can do is we can go ahead and add in the text. So we're going to go to our layers and create a new layer. We're going to go to our actions. We're going to go to add, and we're going to go ahead and add text. If we double tap on the text, we'll get this menu at the top. And let's go ahead and change the font first of all. So we'll tap on the font. And the one I've included in the description down below is this one here. Carinity is the one we want. And let's go ahead and scale the size up a little bit first of all to around about sort of 180. And if we tap on the keyboard icon here, we can go ahead and type in game. And we want it all to be in capitals because there's a difference between the letters if you type them in lowercase and uppercase. And the uppercase ones have more detail in them, which looks really cool. We'll grab our cursor and we're going to move it into that center line, making sure we're nice and central in the middle of the design. And we want to just keep it away from the outer edges and scale it down just a little bit so it's roughly this sort of size and positioning. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. We'll make gaps for it just like we did with the joystick in a second. Let's then go to our layers and swipe this layer here of the text to the left and duplicate it. Grab your cursor and just move it down for a second. Tap on your cursor when you're done. And if you double tap on the text, you'll get that menu pop up again. And we're going to go ahead and go to the keyboard. And once that keyboard pops up, we're just going to change it to over. So again, capital letters we want. And then we're going to grab our cursor again and scale this up in size. Now this one can be bigger, and we're going to let it run to the edges of our little arcade machine and through the gaps, which looks really cool. And we want to try and make it as big as this line here, the sort of main structure of the R is somewhat onto the edge there of our arcade machine. So that's pretty much closed. We can just about make it a tiny bit bigger and move it onto that center point. Make sure, again, you're super central. Tap on your cursor when you're done. Now what we're going to do is just quickly, we're going to go to our layers and we're going to pinch the game and over layer together, and that will then make them a normal layer rather than a text layer. I then want to go to our cursor. Using the distort option here, we're just going to go ahead and add in a little bit of perspective. So we're going to move this node here in the bottom right out to the right, and you can see the spine of that R now runs nicely into the arcade machine line, and then we'll move it roughly the same on the left hand side again, just off to the left, and you can take a look at your node in the middle there to let you know if that sits on that grey line of the symmetry line, it's nicely even on either side. So that dot there pretty much needs to sit in the middle. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. Let's now go ahead and make some gaps for this part of the design. So we're going to go back to our layers and go down to our main arcade machine. Go to your eraser and let's start chopping away. So let's get rid of this area here, chopping away into there. And again, because it's symmetrical, we can do it on one side and it'll do it on the other. We're going to run all the way above that E as well. If we take a look, we've got nice gaps on either side. And likewise above the R and below the R as well. On this side, we can create a nice gap. And you want your gaps to be pretty much even. And then once you're done with creating your initial cutouts, again, reduce your eraser size to small size and just round off those points on all of those little cutouts you made. That would, again, nicely tie it in with the rest of the style of having nice rounded corners. Otherwise, you'll end up with some straight edges in a rounded design. And then here above the E in the game area, we can just go ahead and round that off a little bit better. And then zooming out, we've got some really cool gaps in there for our text. Now let's go ahead and add in the final little touches, which is some extra symbols around the outside. So going back to your brush, we're just going to go ahead and draw in some shapes. So we're going to go ahead and draw in a circle up here. Draw a circle and pop your finger on the screen to make sure it's nice and perfect. You can then also go ahead and draw a square here. So draw a square as best you can and link it up. And then pop your finger on the screen and you'll get a nice perfect square. And we can just pop that off to the side there. You can then also draw in triangles. So we're going to draw a triangle here. Going point to point. And then pop your finger on the screen and you'll get a nice perfect triangle. I want to just pop mine off just to the side here. Scaling that down like so. And then we can also manually sort of add in some X's. So we can draw in a line and then draw in a corresponding line through it. So there we go, we've got a little X there on the side. And we're just going to fill this out with some different size symbols. So a little circle again. We'll add in another square down here. Popping my finger on the screen to make sure it's nice and perfect. Take a look at the other side, because the O and the R, the O is slightly wider in terms of its sizing, so we can't add anything in this sort of area here because you'll get too close to the O. Let's add in an X in here too, so a little smaller one. And then just in this gap here, we'll go ahead and draw in another little triangle. Put your finger on the screen to make sure it's nice and perfect and scale it down to the size that you want. And something like that looks good because we've got a nice little bit of gap there. And there we go. We've done all of our line work. That's the whole creation part of that done. We can now go ahead and move on to coloring and making it look really cool and neon. So let's go ahead and go to our layers and pinch all of the layers we've just made into one layer. We're then going to create a new layer and drag it underneath our design. We're then going to go to our brush library. We're then going to go down to industrial right at the bottom, and we're going to use the stone wool brush. Now your brush size can be around about sort of 35%, and zooming out, we want to give the whole design a very nice light coat. If you press too firm, you'll end up with bricks like this. So you want to kind of do it in one layer, giving it a nice consistent pressure all the way across the screen, like so. And then what we're going to do is just go to the layer. We're going to tap on the layer and add a mask to it. So the white of the mask means that the whole layer has been revealed, but if we paint in with black, which you should now have selected, and we go to our brush, we go to airbrushing and the soft brush, and then make your brush size roughly around about sort of 20% will do the trick. And we're just going to slowly just sort of curve out the corners, giving a nice little vignette look. So we're just curving that corner there, focusing all the light and the user's attention into the center of the design. like so. And then we can go to the layer itself and not the mask, tap on it and just lower the opacity down to around about 80%, or until you have something that looks similar to this. Right, this is the fun part. This is where we can add in the colors. So let's go to our layers, and we're going to go to the top layer, the line layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The top one, we're going to tap on it and we're going to alpha lock it, which means we cannot now paint outside of the lines we've made. We're going to go to our brush. We're going to go back to the option of calligraphy and the monoline brush, except this time we're going to sort of max out the size on the left hand side. And in the palette we've got two different colors. Feel free to experiment with different ones, but we're first of all going to start off with the turquoise in the top left, and neon blue even, and then we're going to go ahead and paint in all the areas we want to make blue. So we're going to go ahead and color in the frame here. You may need to just change your brush size up and down depending on if there's tight areas, but you're just coloring in what you want to be a particular color as you go. I'm going to make the top button here out of these ones blue as well. I'm going to go up the side of the frame all the way to the top and kind of repeat that. So I'm going to go across the top of the frame in blue, across this area here. I'm also going to fill in the X's on the side here, both of those, so they're both going to be blue. I'm going to make the word over here in the center blue as well, so you may just need to do letter by letter because of the symmetry that's on, and that's fine. Just go across the E, colouring in all the lines that you want. So this is where you determine what your design is going to look like colour wise. Let's just colour in the O, and there we go. That's all the blue areas done. We can now move on to the other option, which is pink, and we're going to leave the other items white. So we're going to use the pink. I'm going to make this bar here at the bottom pink, the one above it as well. Repeat that at the top. Make pink across here, pink across here too. Let's make game also pink as well, and just fill in any gaps from the symmetry there. Colour in over what you want to make that colour. We'll make the circles here on the right hand side and left hand side into pink, repeating that then for the other circle at the bottom. And likewise we're going to make the buttons here on the arcade machine also pink. So there's a little sort of experiment there with balancing out the three different tones, white, blue and pink. What we're now going to do is, with this layer, we're going to drag it underneath our white layer, which is our original lines. Tap on the layer and turn off the alpha lock. We're then going to go to our adjustments. We're going to go to the option of bloom, and we're going to go ahead and make this nice and bright and vibrant. So starting off at the bottom, we want to drop the transition down to 23%. We want to make the size 33%, and we want the burn to be 48%. We can then go ahead and swipe on the screen from left to right, and I want to go all the way through. We're going to go all the way from 0% to 100% until we get all of the colors come through and we've got this nice vibrant look. We're going to add more layers though, so this is going to come to life even more. So let's tap on our adjustments for that being done. So we're going to then go to our layers. We're going to grab this layer that we made that's now nice and blurry, swipe it to the left and duplicate it, and drag it above your white layer at the top, and then tap on the layer and clip it to the white one. And then we just want to lower the opacity down of that down to about sort of 10%, just so a little bit of the original color is coming through onto our little shapes here. We can then go to the layers, and the white layer, we're going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out of the two, we're going to tap on that layer and we're going to go ahead and invert it to black. What we're then going to do is grab our cursor, and using the uniform option here, we're going to scale this down, bring it in the top right corner, and then position it in the center again on that center line, but also trying to make sure we're in the center of our design, so you get that blue line there. And we want to create a little bit more depth than that, so we want to make it even smaller again and pop it in the center, creating a little bit of distance between the neon bars and the shadow that sits underneath. This will help it really pop off of the screen. So once you've done with that, you can tap on your cursor. We can then go to adjustments and go to Gaussian blur, and we can swipe from left to right just to feather this out just a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and make it roughly around about 3 or 4%. I'm going to go to the option of 3 there. Now I'm going to tap on my adjustments, and now we're going to create some nice lines that link up our shapes to the shadow underneath and basically bolt the sign to the wall. So we're going to go to our layers. We're going to go ahead and create another new layer, and this is actually the final step as well. We're going to tap on the layer and we're going to turn on the drawing assist so it makes use of the symmetry. We're then going to go ahead and go to our colors and we're going to double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black. We're then going to go ahead and where we have our shadow, we're going to go ahead and create linking lines with the monoline. So we're going to drop the monoline back down to 12%. If not slightly smaller, let's go down to 8%. And we're going to go ahead and where this line here, that's where it should be. We're going to create a line that links them up. So you don't need to create a line for everything if there isn't a shadow to link it to. So we can see there that we've now created these little lines that are just making it look like the sign is attached to the wall. Now these little lines here also exist. So we've got little shadows from these lines into this area here. We've then got these little ellipses here for the buttons. So I'm going to make one off the edge, link those up like so, link this up to here. Creating nice little straight lines where we can, and you're just linking the shadow to the shape above. Likewise here with the joystick, we can go ahead and link that up, maybe one in the center, just connecting it at the top. We then move into sort of the inner area of the arcade machine, so we'll create a line here for the screen, and we don't have to do every single corner, you can just do the end of each line a lot of the time. I can create one here too, just to link that up to there. We've got these circles here off the side and you can make two little lines there just to link them up. We're then going to link this corner to this corner too. And this one here would be pretty much hidden, so I don't need to add one there too. On the X here, we can add maybe one here on this edge and maybe one here from this edge. So you don't have to do every end line, just as long as there's something that makes it look as if it's been supported. So one there. We wouldn't see the other one underneath there, so that's fine. This triangle here will create a linking line at the top. And again, there'd be one maybe underneath in the middle there. That wouldn't be shown. We'll create a linking line here. Let's move on to the X and create another one. So this will just help everything sort of connect to the wall in behind. The circle and create little tiny lines, or if anything, you don't have to go off the side. We could instead go from this edge to this edge to really make it really obvious that there's a linking line there. And it's just elevating the shape above, which looks really cool. Now we've done all of those shapes around there. Let's just take a look inside here at the game over part. We can link up the R to the wall as well, so maybe the ends only. We've then got this sort of loop here, so we can create a line that links, and maybe another one in the middle too here as well. The E and the V are too close to the shadow, so that's fine, we don't need to do that. But what we do need to do, you'll spot I've made some on one side for the R. We need to go ahead and erase them from the left hand side because they don't link with the O. So we go to our layers and we tap on the layer and turn off the drawing assist for a second. Just grab your eraser, erase this line here, because they were from our R. Get rid of that. And then while we've not got the drawing assist on, we go to our brush again and we create some linking lines for the O. So just create some linking lines here. We can then zoom in on the game part over here. So maybe we can create a linking line here for the G, but that's pretty much all we'll do for that left-hand side. And then the E, we can create a nice linking line as well, maybe onto these corners, just like that. Now what we need to do is just go back to the layer, tap on the layer and add the drawing assist back on and continue creating your really cool linking lines, which is just going to make everything sort of stand off the ground. And there we go, that's a little one in the middle. We've then got the top area of the sign, so we link that corner to that corner. I'm going to create another one here too. These bars here go to this shadow, and this shadow here too. And that, when you zoom out, gives the whole design a lot more structure, but obviously the lines are a bit too dark, so we're just going to go quickly to our layers. We're going to go down to the layer where we've got all the blurred color and swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Then drag that layer above your little lines, you'll see them on the screen there. Tap on the layer and clip it. So now all of your lines now have a little bit of a nice light bit of color on them. And we're just going to lower the opacity down of that until our lines start to come back in a little bit more. So I'm going to drop mine down. And I'm going to drop it down to 78%. And if we go up to our actions, we go to our canvas and turn off our drawing guide. And we pinch with 2 fingers and go full screen with 4, you end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this neon game over design. As always, be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram. I love seeing what you get up to. And if you didn't already know, I post weekly tutorials here on my YouTube channel, but I also post 3 more every single month over on my Patreon. You can have your name featured in videos, get sneak peeks of upcoming designs and much more. So hit the link in the description down below and come and show your support. And as always, today's equipment list is the Sketchboard Pro that you can always use code JOELCREATE to get yourself a nice 10% off. I'm currently still using the Doudrot screen cover, and today I've got the Pen Tips glove. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.